Can you hear me okay? Greetings from Tokyo. Sorry about this. We're gonna get started very soon. Just give me one moment to... Okay, perfect. Just give me one moment to set up and we will be on our... Oh, hello, Cooper Clever, our dear friend. Hello. But for the Hobbit, hello. It's nice to see you. How are you doing today, my friends? Today we will be talking about this film, From Russia with Love. So, just hold on for one moment while we get started. Cartwheel Video, hello. It's nice to see you. Mike, nice to hear from you. Thank you very much for that. I will, we'll just talk again, yes. So, Zyrother, hello. It's nice to see you. Today, yes, it's now 7, but let's just give it another a minute or so. Oh, Jared, hello. Having a birthday weekend, right, Jared? Happy birthday, my friend. Happy birthday, indeed. All right. Dave is here. Hello, Dave. And Bye for the Hobbits has got to watch out for those poison shoe blades. Oh my goodness, yes. Yes, Laney Lane, hello. Happy to be here. Happy to see you, Laney. Thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you. And Erwin is here. Hello, it's nice to see you. Prince Mark, hello. It's nice to see you from Norway. It's great. Seth, oh my dear friend Seth. Hello, Taylor Bessinger. Hello. Oh, Tobias, hello from India. You say hello. It's nice to see you. Wow, so great. Thank you very much for stopping by, my friends. It's really, really great. So let's give it one more minute and then we will start. I apologize for going a little bit over, but I hope you can forgive me. But 'tis how things go sometimes in the world of YouTube live streams. So just let's give it another minute or so. And then again, the focus of discussion will be on this film, From Russia with Love, directed by Terrence Young, of course, Broccoli and Saltzman, based on the novel by Ian Fleming and starring Sean Connery, Lotte Lenya, Robert Shaw, etc. So we'll talk about this really exciting film momentarily. Okay. And I think we can start very soon. Wow, very nice. Cartwheel Video says, I haven't seen any James Bond movie that came out before Die Another Day. Okay, should I start at the beginning? Yeah, that's a possibility. Of course, you know, one of the good things about James Bond films, if you're in that kind of position, Cartwheel Video, is it's not necessarily the case that you have to start from the beginning. For the most part, there isn't any type. Well, there is, of course, a type of continuity. That's for sure. But I would say, for the most part, it's not an absolute necessity. So maybe you can watch them in chronological order, but not necessary. But actually, Dave, our dear friend Dave, says start in chronological order. So that's good advice. And also, Cooper Clever says the same thing. And Michael Mr. Hello. Okay, so wonderful. So let us begin in earnest, shall we, with respect to this film From Russia with Love from 1963. Okay, so let's start with the basics and the preliminaries, and we'll go underway. And at the end of this, or maybe around the time again, I might have to start winding this down when we hit around maybe the 9 a.m. mark where I am. So when we do that, we can start to wind down the conversation, and then we can begin to discuss what film we should talk about next. Because as you know, the group consensus is reached thanks to the great efforts of Zyrother and Kubrick Lever and um, Damnful, Idealist Crusader, and others, and just trying to assemble people's votes, because you will be able to vote for which film you want to talk about next. So keep that in mind, and we'll start that conversation around the 9 a.m. mark where I am. But before we begin, let us now just start in earnest, shall we? So, greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and thank you very much for joining along with this live stream discussion where we will be talking about and discussing and just sharing our thoughts and comments about this film from 1963, which is called From Russia with Love. And this is a James Bond film, and it stars Sean Connery as James Bond in a very intricate plot, and I would say quite a brilliant plot in many respects. And I'll try to discuss some reasons as to why I feel that way. And so, excuse me. Um, and so I think I'm looking forward to discuss. Excuse me. I'm looking forward to discussion very much. Excuse me. Sorry about this. I'm looking forward to this discussion very much, and uh, I look forward to hearing your thoughts about this film in the live chat. And so, just to let you know, the live chat is open, and I will be doing my best to keep up with the live chat. Although, please understand that I am not always so good with this medium, and so maybe I will be missing a number of your comments, and for that I really apologize. I truly apologize for that. And I think also uh, the the chat is going to be the discussion will be assisted, or it'll be supported by the great work of the moderators here. Damnful Idealistic Crusaders, Irother, Jared, and Stealthborn, and Cooper Glover. And so I just want to say in advance, thank you very much to all of you for your excellent efforts. As always, it really means a lot. And to all of you as well, I know that in the live chat, in discussions before, you've always been so kind and courteous, and uh, you've been very respectful towards others, and you've been just trying to share your love and enthusiasm for all things James Bond and these films. And so I just want to thank you in advance for continuing on that sense of mutual respect. You know, even where we might disagree, still, it's always about the films. And so I just want to say thank you very much in advance for your kindness and attention to those matters. I really appreciate it, and I wouldn't be able to do this channel without the great support and kindness of you, my dear friends. So thank you so much for that. And so the live chat is available and open, and I will do my best to go through everything. But as I say, I won't be able to do everything, and I will skip over a few things, unfortunately, because of time, and also because it goes by quite quickly. And also, so I apologize in advance. I will do my best. And also, but related to that too, which is if you have any question or comment for me that is of a nature other than this particular film, then I might uh, I want to thank you very much for that, but I will probably just not go into that for now, because I do want to focus my energy and attention to this particular film. So if you want to talk to me about some other non From Russia with Love related comment, please feel free to leave behind a comment elsewhere on a video, and I will do my best to respond. I can't promise to provide the response that's satisfactory to everyone, but what I can say is I will certainly look at it and see what I can do. But for now, let us focus our attention on From Russia with Love. And in that spirit, I should say also that if anyone is stopping by here and you haven't seen this film From Russia with Love, then I would suggest please turn off this live stream and watch the film, and then you can come back at any time, because hopefully this should be uploaded as a video after the fact, and so you can always come back and watch this if you so choose. And because I will be talking about spoilers and some specifics, and the ending, what happens with particular characters, and so I don't want to spoil the experience for you, because it is a very exciting and thrilling Bond film. So if you haven't seen it, my strongest suggestion is just turn off this live stream, and then you can come back later when you have seen it in your own good time, of course, and if you so choose. And also, I should say that this is not meant to be any kind of definitive review or anything. It's just meant to be a type of casual discussion. And I'm basing my comments on having seen the film for a number of times over a number of years. And so with that, maybe that experience with the film as a fan, I do want to share with you just some thoughts I have about it from that perspective. And so I don't claim to know everything about the film. I don't have a a solid foundation as to every detail, and I won't be going into necessarily any breakdown or um, uh, comparison, contrast with, say, the novel by Ian Fleming. But what I will do is I will just, excuse me, um, I will just, as I say, talk about it from a fan's perspective. And I also look forward to learning from you and from getting your own perspective and also your own points about what you know about the production and the story, etc. And so I look forward to this as a learning experience. And in that respect, I just am very much depending on your comments in the live chat. So I look forward to that very much. So, in that spirit, my friends, let us begin with this discussion of From Russia with Love. And so, before we go into that any further, let's just see who is in the live chat area, and then we will go from there. So, thank you very much. And let's see. Um, okay. Oh, damn, full idealistic crusader is here as well. Thank you so much. Thank you. I just left behind a comment to your comment, by the way. Um, my reply was better still. And Erwin says, I for sure did not grow up watching the films, the Bond films, in order, and it's my favorite film franchise. Um, right, we're discussing about the order. But if you wanted to start with the films, you can go with Doctor No. You can, I mean, you can go in chronological order, but you don't have to. And so, um, when I was growing up, the Roger Moore era, the latter half of the Roger Moore era, was where I was growing up, and so those were the Bond films for me. But I don't remember what was the first Bond film I ever saw. I don't actually. Yeah, it was probably. Oh gosh, that's a good question. But um, yeah, yeah. But it's not it's an approach to go in chronological order, but not necessarily. Um, okay, so great, great. So let me now begin with just a quick opening comment about From Russia with Love and my experience with the film. So, From Russia with Love, this is another film from the early 1960s, of course, and it is, officially speaking, the second film in this Eon, Harry Saltzman, Albert R. Cubby Broccoli produced film series, which began the year previous with Dr. No, and now we have From Russia with Love. And so we have a series of films that are purported to be based, or the idea is a number of stories written by Ian Fleming form the basis for what could be a developing series. And this idea of a developing series is evident in this film, I think, in a number of ways, one of which is, of course, it follows quite soon after the release of Dr. No, and also there are a number of characters that and performers that appear that, of course, were also present in the earlier film Dr. No. There is a lot of carryover. There's a lot of characters specifically who have maybe a little bit of character arc development or epilogue, if you will, that we saw in Dr. No, but now is touched upon or referenced even to a slight degree here in From Russia with Love. Sylvia Trench is back, and also there's a reference also by Kronstein to Dr. No, and one of the reasons why it might be a good idea for Spectre to implement this plan that Kronstein, who's the director of planning at Spectre and also number five, right? And so one of the reasons of many in terms of trying to implement this plan regarding the Lecter is a little extra added incentive or bonus for a kind of revenge for the killing of what he calls his Spectre's operative Dr. No. And so there are these little connections and references to the past film. But so we understand that this is a type of continuation of what is maybe endeavored to be some kind of continuing world or franchise, if you will, or series of films. And so, in that way, of course, it has a very special place, and the fact that it, I think, in I think the view of many, I think succeeds so well, I think really helped to solidify the success of the series going forward, at least from the perspective of the public and fans alike, even to this very day. Of course, it's important in that way. And from a personal note, I think for me, it was something that, like with many other Bond films from the 1960s, it was something that was there. I didn't get a chance to see it when it was released because I wasn't born yet. But when I was a kid growing up, excuse me, when I was a kid growing up, and I was beginning to discover the world of James Bond through VHS rental tapes, through broadcasts on TV, and in particular, when I was a kid living in the UK at the time, it was LWT. Those James Bond films would be broadcast on a weekly basis, and so whenever those sorts of moments on TV would occur, or maybe when it would be a VHS rental night for the family, From Russia with Love would come up. Also, this was I remember a particular favorite of my parents. And so my mom was a great fan of Sean Connery, and she loved the Sean Connery James Bond films, and this was one of her favorites. My father too, whenever Bond came up, he would always mention From Russia with Love, and he'd casually sing the theme song in the kitchen or something, from Russia. So it was something that they knew very well, and so I think probably through some kind of that type of, what do you call it, osmosis or something, or that kind of influence, I was very naturally inclined, I think, to be drawn to this film From Russia with Love when it would come up, and it would be something that as a kid, oh, this is something my parents like, um, and so it would always be in the air for me, as it were. And in that way, like with other films, I don't remember and I can't pinpoint the exact moment when I saw it for the first time. It's like with a number of films like that, which is I came to it, I think, fairly early, and so it's hard for me to know exactly when it first arrived. But so in that way, it feels like it's a film that's always been there for me, and so I feel like I've always known it, and I've always known the little story beats and things like that. But in even though I might know the story beats every time I see it, I am always enthralled by it. I am enthralled by many of the visual elements of it, and I'm enthralled by the music, and I'm enthralled by the look, and I'm also enthralled by the plot and the performances. So it's the entire package of cinema presentation, in my view, is expressed in this film, which makes it something that it always makes me engaged every time I see it. And in that way, it is one of my favorites. I should point out, actually, just as a side note, that over the course of these live streams, I have actually been thinking about what my favorite, if I had to list my favorite James Bond films in order, like my top, like one, two, three, four, five, I think actually my list is slightly changed, thanks in large part to these live streams and our discussions. And so I think a film that I probably, there's a film that has jumped in the list very high, in fact. But even in that discussion, From Russia with Love has always been around the top for me. I think it's an incredibly strong plot. It's one of the strongest plots that it's one of the strongest plots I think in a Bond film. Not to say that the other Bond films have weak plots. On the contrary, I think these are great plots in these film series. There's something, however, about this plot that is fascinating to me. It does feel very much like a Cold War thriller. It feels like a spy thriller in the vein of a Le Carre novel, because of the intrigue, the back and forth, the play acting, people pretending to be others in a very, I think, duplicitous and quite nuanced way. And it's tough to see who's who are your enemies, who are your friends, and that kind of clouding of the relationship dynamics, I think, is also part of the Cold War plot mechanics of this, which I find very fascinating. The idea here of the way in which Spectre is essentially um, it's essentially antagonizing both the British side and also Smersh and the Bulgarian forces here. The Russian forces and the Bulgarian forces here, they're trying to antagonize both sides in order to make them believe that the other side is really carrying out these little attacks, killing of agents on the ground, and the bomb explosions at Karen Bay's maybe office and headquarters or something like that. And so uh, this type of back and forth, I think, is very much part of the Cold War mechanic of the plotting, which I find very fascinating. There, of course, were other very Cold War related elements in past or in future Bond films, but here we have a type of Cold War thriller which I am very much appreciative of, and I do like very much. And then in this context, we have some of the great moments in James Bond films. I think Sean Connery and his performance, I think it's a great performance. He has an assured cool style about him. You know, Dr. No, in that film, he was, of course, so great and iconic. It was a great introduction. And but here he has a type of a confidence, confident enough to just slow down and take things somewhat casually. And he is, I think, he has this casual air about him. When, of course, he has to do his job, he does it very well. For instance, when it comes time for them to initiate the plan to actually take the lector. And so that whole sequence involves a lot of plotting and planning, and um, it was planned for the 14th, but today's the 13th, right? But it's not a time to be superstitious after all. And so the Sean Connery does a really great job in being that cool, suave Bond character, but also knowing when to act and when to get the job done, and also when he is frustrated and angry, like after the death of Karen Bay, and he goes back and confronts Tatiana in the car when they're on the Orient Express, and he just uh, rips open the door, and he's like, Karam's dead, and just trying to confront her about what he knows she is doing, because the whole plot, from her point of view, is that for she is working for the Russian government, vis-a-vis Colonel Klebb, who she still understands is still working for Russian intelligence. But we know as viewers that Colonel Klebb, or Rosa Klebb, is in fact defected. And part of her defection is, it's not only has she defected, but she is also now working for Spectre as an agent, Spectre agent number 3. and so she is using her, and her defection has been kept secret except for according to her, a few members of the Presidium, and so. Of course, according to Blofeld, for your sake, I hope so. And the so right, so there is going back to Tatiana's perspective. From her perspective, this is what the plot is. But when Bond confronts her and says, "I know you're working under orders," and then there's this blurring of the lines between what is orders and what is an emotional, real take on human relationships. And so that blurring of the lines too, I think, is very fascinating, and it's another part of what makes this Cold War thriller very engaging indeed. Um, because after all, they won't always be working on the company's time. At least that's according to Bond. And so, the look of the film, I think, is very cool. I think the it has this air of uh, of a type of romanticism. It's very romantic, and it has a beautiful score to help that along. And of course, I mentioned Kleb, there's Kronstein, I also mentioned Blofeld a little bit. We get a little bit of, I guess it's Blofeld, or maybe it's the top of his head and his hands with his ring. There are a lot of rings here, Inspector. They probably change rings every year or so, because this ring style is a very different style of ring that we will see, I think, later in Thunderball. Um, what is the name of that rings company? They make those rings for graduating classes, like Jostens. Do they still have Jostens in the United States? And so maybe Spectre goes to Jostens and they ask them to make a Spectre ring every year or so. But anyway, we have their Spectre ring here, and the Siamese fighting fish, and well, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. So that's Blofeld. So we got the great villains gallery, and of course, I am saving uh, Grant, Robert Shaw's Grant, as right here, because this is for me one of the great highlights, and for a lot of people, one of the great highlights of this is the appearance of Grant and the way that he creates this air of menace and suspense and fear and peril, and how he is a wonderful counterpoint to Bond in terms of a physical threat, and also in terms of a mystery and what is going to happen. And you know that they are going to collide. And when they collide, it's going to be no holds barred collision of the highest caliber. And indeed, that's what we get in terms of that. So that's another great example, I think, of where this film succeeds so brilliantly. And it's always been in the spirit that I felt about this film. I mean, there have been things about it that I admit I didn't understand when I saw it as a kid, but I would always come back to this film over the years, and many times, and every single time, it would just be fireworks, and it would be excitement and romance and so many thrills. This is a great one. This is a really great one. This is From Russia with Love, and so I'm looking forward to this immensely. And so, in that spirit, my friends, let us talk in earnest about this. But before we go on, let's go to the live chat and see what's going on here. So, yes, Erwin actually says, serious spy stuff and great Cold War linkage. Yes, yes, I agree very much. Um, and it also set the standard as to how to film an exciting and claustrophobic fight scene. Yes, you're referring, of course, I think, to the famous or infamous, depending on your point of view, I suppose, the fight scene between Grant and Bond in the Orient Express. There, that is an amazing and such a suspenseful and wild type of sequence. And I didn't realize until I caught up with a number of the, say, documentaries and commentaries, etc. I'd never realized just how wonderfully exaggerated those sounds were, for instance. And because there's no music, so I always looked at it as a type of gritty realism, as it were, which I think it is on the one hand. But on the other hand, it's the breaking of the glass that Peter Hunt was emphasizing, so you can get the sound of the outside to make it even the roar, and the wonderful exaggeration of the the wristwatch. What is it? Garrot, right? And so that little and that those exaggerated sounds, I think, really heighten the tension. And I didn't quite realize that until I heard those comments by, I think it was Peter Hunt. And so, yes, I agree. I agree. That is almost like a textbook example of how to do that type of scene. And aboard one of the most luxurious um, right, the Orient Express, and so that combination is amazing, absolutely amazing, and it also is, I think, right, one of the, or it is the first train fight, I think, in this Bond film series. So yes. And let's see, Kubrick Lover says, I felt the song was so good, and I felt uh, the titles, yes, were very, yes. So this is a very kind of interesting this is a very interesting uh, uh, song, and the titles, I think, are actually, this is a really good this is a good place to go. I think for me, I will say that the well, actually, let me hold on, just give me 1 second. I think for me, there we go. I think for me, the song is, as I say, it was one that my father would be singing, and it was, it's one of those sort of classics that you can still hear today, and recordings are made readily available. So that I think is, and it has a, I think it has a type of almost, uh, it how should I put it? Um, I don't know, it when you think of, when you listen to it, it doesn't feel necessarily like a type of Bond song, in the sense of it has that bombast, or it has that that turn into minor key, the John Barry type of chords, if you know what I mean. But it has that feel of an era. It has that feel of an easygoing type of almost sad lament, if you will, set against a type of ballad song. And so I find that to be uh, really quite wonderful. And this is actually, Morris Binder, I think, wasn't available, and so I understand that this was Robert Brownjohn and the titles, and so we have the the titles, except for the producers, Harry Saltzman and Albert R. Broccoli, at the very beginning. And then we have the titles, I think, projected as light beams, or maybe projected onto a screen in black. And then we have a performer dancing in front of the titles. And I always thought, like, oh, this is so cool, this is interesting, but oh, some of them are really hard to read, and like, oh, art direct, like the leg is going like this, and then 007 is like this, and Martin Beswick, right? Not Martine, although that's, I think, corrected in the closing credits, and the one, it's music by da 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 da, right? So it goes like that. So wait, who's doing the music? Hold on, I gotta pause this. So it has that little effect there, but it's very unique, and very characteristic of this type of projection on a screen or background, and then using that to maybe portray some kind of effect. Here, it's the idea of this dance performance, which is something that we will see later in the film, when Karen Bay takes Bond to the camp, trying to keep him safe, although in fact we realized that taking him to the camp is probably one of the most dangerous things because it leads to the attack Krylenko, and then also Grant is in the shadows, etc. But anyway, um, so the titles, it's a really interesting set of titles, and I think it's a great use of or an interesting use of the projected words onto a screen. Although um, uh, what was that one? There would always be a couple that I admit I wouldn't be able to, or they'd be very difficult for me to read. So it would be great if they could do titles like that now for some of the modern Bond films. I don't know if they do that anymore, but simple but effective. Um, or simple and effective, I should say, not but. I retract that. I'll say simple and effective. That's for sure. Um, let's see. 03 degrees. I love the opening credits song. Yes, and it wasn't the vocal. It was the instrumental, and it started with that wonderful opening. The that is a cool open. That talk about a a sting to get one's attention, and it goes from there into the sort of romantic instrumental version of the theme, which is brilliant. And it right, and it's a great way to enter because it's a great way to set mood because that I think for me every time I see that I jump up and I become excited because prior to that it was that very eerie sequence on I think Spectre Island, and the training, the I think according to Terrence Young, it was the let's what's the best way to train Spectre agents than using a set that's similar to last year at Marienbad. And so we've got Grant and trying to essentially assassinate a someone who looks like Bond. Although I must admit, there's a lot of a what's the phrase? Like it seems like applied makeup to make it look a little bit paler in terms of the of Sean Connery's face. But then we realize the reason why, because when we've got the final kill of this, by the way, which is there's a moment where Grant has him and he's like dun 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 so there's like a number of faces that he does. It's like one, two, like that. So that was that was always a detail that I always found fascinating. And then of course the lights turn on, and we realize that this is all kind of game, a really dangerous sort of game. And then we have a kind of shock for me when I was a kid because Morzeni, who's the agent who comes in. This is Walter Gotell, and I saw this film, but when I saw this film, I always knew of of Gogol. And so I thought, oh, Gogol is in this film. What's going on? Oh no, and I realized it's probably not Gogol because of what happens to this character at the very end and the sequence involving the boat chase. But right, you're firing too close. And speaking of that, I never understood why he was announcing in such a loud voice with the megaphone. I guess I can, but he was announcing like, Bond, you're trapped. You're trapped. Heave ho, heave ho. You're firing too close. Spectre red, Spectre green. You're fine. So don't shout that, because if Bond hears that, you think, oh, they don't want to kill me. So he's already thinking, he's already giving the game up in many ways. I don't see why he was using that. Um, they right, it's Spectre, so wouldn't they have maybe a radio system that they could use? Maybe, I don't know, walkie talkies. Did they have walkie talkies back in the day? I'm not sure, but they could have used some kind of system that wouldn't have given the game up, as it were, because I think he was shouting too much. If I were in a boat chase and I were being chased by someone, and if that someone chasing me were having a megaphone and shouting to other boat people who were chasing me, and they're saying, you're firing too close, you're firing too close, we don't want to kill him, and I think, okay, then I still have a chance. I should really actually double my efforts and try to get away. And so but then of course we understand what happens to him with the barrels, and get rid of it, get rid of it, which has, and it has a great sound effect at the end, right? And then boom, boom, boom. So that's what happened to, and I always thought that, wow, Gogol, what happened to Gogol? Oh my goodness. Well, of course, right? If I can keep it in my head that this is in fact a different character, then I understand what's going on. And so anyway, so that was always a big shock whenever I saw the opening or the pre-titles. And what was it? Well, it's the time. Please, someone correct me if I'm wrong. 1 minute 52 seconds. That's excellent, I think. So uh, if that's the case, that's a very short amount of time, and so we understand that this is, of course, also the introduction of Grant, the Robert Shaw character, and we realize that there's something really creepy and weird going on, and then we realize that this is not Bond because the mask comes off, and lo and behold, we have someone with a mustache, and so it always led me to think: is facial hair in a Bond film like akin to, say, what's the phrase, red shirts in Star Trek? You know, because there's this maybe ongoing, maybe thing in that series where people who beam down from the Starship Enterprise onto the planet's surface of whatever planet they're visiting, you have always have, you know, Kirk, Spock, and some other person with a red shirt, and so that usually means that's the setup for maybe something bad will happen to this particular person with a red shirt. So is that something that we can say with people with mustaches in Bond films? I don't know. We This one is it's one of the most prominent mustaches I've seen so far in well, it's probably one of the most prominent mustaches in the Sean Connery run of films, that's for sure. But in any event, we have the mustached person or agent or whatever being assassinated, live target having been killed. And that wonderful, I spoke about sound effects later, but hear that wonderful effect of the mask being pulled off, the great touch, and then the eerie shot of them walking. I think the mask dangling, there's walking silent and fades to black, and then da 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 da, right, and then saltzman broccoli, and then the right. And that's great stuff. I love, right. They had to remind us that this was James Bond. It was 007, so they had to remind us of that, which is a great touch, by the way. So anyway, yes, I agree wholeheartedly. Um, and let's see. Okay, just scrolling down here. Okay. Um, sorry. Okay, sorry about this. Sorry about this. Okay, scrolling. I'll just say keep up as best we can. Oh, my goodness. Yes. Oh, and this is also, I think, um, speaking of sound effects, when we speak about Roger Moore and what we love, or one of the many things that we love about Roger Moore's performances is it's the sound effects that he, so, you know, the oh, that Roger Moore thing. I think here for From Rush with Love, it's for me, maybe you have other candidates, but for me, it's when Sean Connery says yes, you know, when he's yes, like when he's looking. I think there are a number of them in this film, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't there one where when he's looking at the installed periscope? Um, what is it? It's the Russian embassy that they're looking at, I think, and then that's where they're seeing the meeting, the high level meeting, and Krylenko's there. Oh, Krylenko, so he's back. You know, he kills for pleasure or something. And then we see Romanova come in, and yes. So I think that's another trait. Perhaps it's the way Sean Connery says yes in many of the scenes. So let's see. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm skipping over a few comments here. I really apologize. Vaughn Jarvie is here today. Hello. Jim is here. Hello, Jim. It's nice to see you. The most authentic spy film of all the Bonds. It's a really great way of putting it. Let's see here. Oh, hold on. Oh, my screen is frozen. Am I frozen? Is it? Am I okay? Can you just let me know? Am I okay? I'm looking at my screen. It's frozen up. Running flat? Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, yes. To borrow Keigo Onishi's phrase, I guess my Wi-Fi is not like a Russian clock, right? So, uh, so thank you very much, Keigo. So, okay, there we go. Um, just going back up here. Sorry about this. This is great. Like always, you, everyone here has a great conversation. It's just, I'm trying so hard to keep up here. So thank you, Michael. Mister is here. Hello. Thank you so much. Nice to see you again. Um, Let's see. Seth says the theme with no lyrics after that excellent opening henchman training scene. Yes, removing the Sean Connery meth. Yes, excellent opening scene per the norm. I agree. I agree. Cooper Glover. You also think the danger is all over when Bond and the Russian girl get to Venice and the Spectre woman, and the fight is well staged. Yes, yes. Um, you're speaking about the hotel. Um, um, He's Bond is speaking to what's his name, Paul. Hello, hello, right? Rabatava at the door, Rabatava, and you know, there's that extra moment where I think at this point, I think we can guess where Tatiana Romanova. Where she will side, but there's that little extra added detail of the dun dun, right? And she's got the gun, and it's like, who's she gonna shoot? You know, but that's great. Um, and then yeah, that is a great moment. That's well said, Cooper Clever. Thank you. um, let's see. Oh, and then there's mention here about Karen Bay. Yes, Pedro Amendares and the performance that he gave. And yes, now we know, right, that he was very ill during the production. And according to, right, Jim says it, right, apparently he was in a lot of pain during the shooting of the film. And yes, when you understand this, you can actually get a sense of that in terms of maybe some of the scenes. And so it's there's a real uh, gentleness to the Karen Bay character. And so and I think it also has to do with his voice and the way that he is smiling on screen, and that lovely chemistry and rapport that he has with Bond and with Sean Connery. And the the inventiveness and the ingenuity that he has, the idea of putting the periscope in there, or using the canals underground, or the escape plan, and just using his suave nature and charm, and the idea about how he's always a supporter for promoting family. Okay, and so uh, and you know, the double entendre that brings with it, and the nature of him. He likes the company of women, and he also believes that he has a lot of sons, and so there is something of a very almost a lovable, roguish nature, and a gentle nature to him and to his character. And I think also that that is made even more strengthened by the performance itself, Amadeus' performance. It's really it's another example of why this film is so iconic, because of characters like Karen Bay. And when what happens to Karen Bay happens, you really feel that loss. There, I don't know, that always bothered me as a kid. It was really sad when that moment um, when they discover that Karen Bay is dead in the train car. That scene, and he's on the floor, and his eyes are open, and it's that music like dun, 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 and Bond just doesn't know what to say, and they're just looking almost in shock. And they think, well, they killed each other, but we also know it probably wasn't them. It was probably the interference of Grant, and the results of his terrible sort of skills as an assassin. So that moment always really scared me, and it made me very sad. And just his eyes being open, there was that little detail that made it even more chilling. And even now, it's ugh. It's also the end of a really fascinating and lovable character is Karen Bay, so I think it made it even more effective in that way. So there's something to, excuse me, speaking of Karen Bay and Mdar's, and there's something really great. One of my favorite, so many favorite moments, but when after they've immediately after they've attacked and they've stolen the Lecter and they're going through the tunnels and the rats and 007 theme, da, 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 da. There's shots of them like walking really fast. And I just love the shots of Karen Bay doing that. There's a purpose and drive, but he's also doing it in a type of calm, almost gentle manner. And perhaps that's due to, as Jim was referring to, the details of the production, how he was, and how we understand he was probably feeling physically in terms of the pain and discomfort. But I think the way he walks, there's a graceful element to it, and there's a nice jaunty feel, hop in his step feel that is elevated, and I think highlighted by the application of the 007 theme. And so I think it's just great. Karen Bay, one of the classics, but again, you don't need me to tell you this. Uh, yeah, but anyway, thank you, thank you. So scrolling down, just scrolling down here. Let's see. Yes, yes, Erwin, thank you. You can tell when they run through the sewers that Pedro is in quite some pain looking at his face. That's true. But there's also a sense of it being even more of a, how should I put it? And it's also true, I think, in the camp sequence, because there's a little bit of physicality involved. But even so, there is a type of grace, I think, or a type of uh, uh, the and with the understanding too that even though he was feeling that way, the fact that he was still doing this and doing these, I think, fairly physically involving sequences is a credit to him and also to the performance. It makes it even more almost type of an emotional moment, if you will. It's a really yeah, I agree 100%. Kubrick Lover says there's talking about mentioning the name of Blofeld or not mentioning Blofeld. He's mentioned as number one, but as Zyrother says, I think he's mentioned in the credits, right, with the question mark. Um, and Damphel adds the Thunderbolt court case was underway when they started the series and it wasn't yet ironed out. Yes, that McClory would have all the Spectre rights. Later, they worked out the deal to make Thunderbolts. Henok is here. Hello. It's nice to see you. Erwin says, From Rush with Love is number four on my list from best to worst. Well, that's great. Number four. I wonder what number three, number two, and number one are, Erwin. Please let us know if you haven't already. And also number five, number six, number seven, number eight, number 9. Yeah, let us know about all of them. I'd love to know. If anyone else, by the way, if you want to share me your lists, your favorites, Bond films in order of your favorites, number one, number two, please let me know any time. Um, Yeah. Um, I wonder, I always wonder, like, how Spectre, we've got, this is the first time we're seeing Spectre in terms of the numbering system, right? Number one. So it's like we got number one, number three, number five here, right? So interestingly enough, we don't see number two, we don't see number, so there's no even numbered agents. There's just the odd numbered agents in this particular situation. So one, three, five. I think in Doctor No we didn't get the sense of the numbering system yet. We only got word that he was working for Spectre. Doctor No was, and also that Kronstein mentions the killing of our operative Doctor No. So I always wondered, did it ever come up what number Doctor No could have been? I'm not sure. Maybe he was number two. He feels Doctor No feels number two-y to me. Um, maybe number two or number. I don't know. He seems pretty high up, but um, in terms of his influence and prestige, if you will, right? Uh, so, or gosh, what was I saying? Oh yes, so Spectre and the numbering system, it makes. I always thought, oh, it would be interesting if, like, they decided, oh, by the way, Spectre 3, could you tell me your favorite Bond films in order? Well, my number one film, huh? My number one film is from what you're talking about? No, no, I'm just talking about my number one. My number two film is, huh? And Largo's like, what are you talking about? You got, and then number five. What's your number three favorite? Huh? My number three favorite film, number one, is from Watch It With, huh? And then Kleb, who's number three, are you talking to, so it's like that that scene in Airplane, huh? Who? Huh? Roger, over, right? So, gosh, anyway, sorry for the bad jokes here. Sorry. Um, Okay, and then Erwin says, yes, the Cold War in Istanbul will not remain cold very much longer. Yes, she says, with her wonderful glasses. Those are great. There's this thing about glasses, eyeglasses in films. Those are some of the most famous, in my view, eyeglasses in films. I don't know if we could. Gosh, those glasses are so cool. I think I understand that she couldn't, according to um, um, uh, Danielle Bianchi. She couldn't see through. Lotte Lenya, who played Rosa Klebb, couldn't see them with those glasses on, because they were really thick lenses, and they look very thick because they almost have this way of distorting the look of the face, which makes it even. I think it enhances the fact that this is a villain, and so. Really great touch by Lotte Lenya and Terrence Young and company. Walter Gotell, yes. Yes, and speaking of Klebb, yes, the casting of Yen as Rosa Klebb was inspired, so says Jim Salas. She's an awesome villain. I agree. She's great too because she is really scary in terms of the sudden bursts of anger that she has. She's very, the thing with the brass knuckles. When I was a kid, I never understood. I didn't know what brass knuckles were. I didn't quite know what those were. What is she doing with what is that? And then she does the thing, and you can tell that it phases Robert Shaw a little bit. There's a little look on Robert Shaw's like, and then he calms. So you could tell it phased him a little bit, but that's the way she tests out the physical fitness of Spectre Agent. Oh my goodness! And then there's the interactions between Klebb and Tatiana, which have this undercurrent, many undercurrents, of course. And then there's also a type of how should I put it, a vulnerability that Klebb shows, especially when she's in the company of number one and number five, as after the Grant has been found dead, and their plan has been thwarted by Bond, and they don't have the Lecter. And so she says she thinks she's going to die and she's going to be killed. In fact, we know that's not the case, um, because the object of number one's ire ends up becoming Kronstein, with that hat, and the what is it? How long does the venom take? 12 seconds, I think. Is it 12 seconds? One day they must try to find a faster working venom. We can see in that moment that Klebb is so terrified, and she knows she's escaped by, what's the phrase, by the skin of her teeth, but she knows that she'll only get one more chance, and that's why she implements. I think it's two pronged approach. She has Walter Gotell in that wonderful coat try to attack first, and then she does a final attack in the hotel room that Hubert Glover was mentioning earlier. She masquerades as, I think, a hotel staff, and then goes in and tries to steal. And it goes like that. I love that. It's great, great. And then there's a great moment too. It's like, you've got Bond. What are you gonna do? You really want to assassinate Bond, so let's do it in the most agonizingly slow way possible. Close the door slowly, and then boom, yes, Tatiana, with, I think it's her coat or her vest, the green vest, I think she does. It's very much also, I was talking about Largo, and how don't give Largo a towel, because he's going to go to work on his agents, right? And so the same thing with Tatiana, she's able to do that and disarm Klebb, and they have the final fight with the shoe. So remember too, This is apparently the shoe is apparently standard equipment with Spectre, because a lot of the people have these shoes, and it's on the right foot. So is it always on? Is it just on one foot, or do they have them on both feet? I never quite knew, but um, here's an example too of one of the high-ranking Spectre agents actually doing the groundwork in many ways. And so we commented, I think, in the past live stream on Thunderball about how Largo, who was number two, one of his great strengths was how he was willing to do a lot of the work, go into swim under the swim in the sea, arrange for the hiding of the bombs, etc. A lot can be said to number five. Kronstein is very much a hands-off approach. He's like, "Oh, I've thought about this and I've thought about this, but then you know, it wasn't my fault. It was Kleb's. It's all the people that she chose. Don't look at me. I didn't choose them." So he's very much hands-off approach. But Rosa Klebb, she's very much someone who is working on the ground, very much like Largo, and I think that's a very effective thing. So she's willing to work on the ground, as it were, with the field agents. She's also willing to do the work herself, and she's also frightening, and she has bursts of anger, but she's also very vulnerable. So that combination, I think, is a very deadly one indeed. So yes, I agree. One of the great villains. One of the great villains indeed. And before I go on, I should say also Kronstein, that wonderful setup about how he is a type of mastermind, the head of the director of planning, I think, at Spectre, right? Uh, we hope that the, right, his work as director of planning will continue to be as successful as his chess, and I love how Kronstein is almost arrogantly defined in that movie. He said, "They will be." Almost, he's a little bit irritated that she's making this type of joke about it, and it's, I think, a very complimentary joke that Kleb is making, because she's complimenting him on his successful chess efforts, and he's saying, they will be, and I love that too. I love how Spectre passes messages to people. It's like we're in this very heated and very tense, I think, chess match. It's a highly right. It's a very famous one, and we have a gallery of people watching. And how is Spectre going to pass messages? It's through the. I love this. Here's okay. Here's my cup of iced coffee here. No more ice, but it's cold. But so we've got this and the piece of paper, and my hand will duplicate the piece of paper. So I love the guy who stands while Kronstein is there at the table in his chess game. And he just puts the water there. It's like this, right? It's like this. And then Kronstein's like, "Oh, I love that. That's the Spectre, like the message, right? You have to hold the cup there for a long time, and that's the way that Kronstein will know. Oh, this is a message from number one. I better read it. And so, okay, I'm glad he was able to read it, and he wasn't focusing too much, because if he's focusing too much on the water, he could have spilt it, and that would have given the game away right there and then. But anyway, good on you. And then he goes to the yacht, the Spectre yacht, which isn't the Disco Volante, by the way. But probably I can assume that if Largo's Disco Volante and this ship, the or not ship, the yacht, the number one's yacht, if they were in some kind of yacht race, I would probably like to assume that this yacht has some little thing, equipment there that would make it, give it the edge and make it beat out the Disco Volante as far as the Disco Volante and fast as it can go. But in any event, yes, yes. Uh, my goodness. Okay. So scrolling down here. So Peter is here. Hello. Norty Bura. I hope I pronounced it correctly. It's nice to see you. Yes. Thank you. Han Solo Tube HD. Hello. The Star Wars Kid 123. Hello from Ohio, USA. Hello. It's nice to see you. And Keigo Onishi is here. Keigo, hello, it's nice to see you. Who is Blofeld compared to Kronstein? In fact, who is Kronstein compared to Kronstein? Yes, yes. Exactly. What have you to say to that? Number 3. Yes. Kubrick Lover says Ken Adam wasn't used for the film after Kubrick sold the sets for Doctor No, so he worked on Doctor Strangelove instead. Yes. Okay. Let's see. Cine Arts is here. Yes. Hi, Daisuke. This is one of my absolute favorite Bond films, and therefore films in general. Sean Connery is at his best as Bond in this, and Goldfinger, in my opinion, a masterpiece. Yes. Yes, I agree. Damn fool. Sid Kane did amazing set design on this film and represented the more realistic style perfectly. Yes, yes. The most exaggerated set in many ways is probably the opening with the chess match, but with the whole. But I thought it had a nice air of um, like upper class, and also power, and also the idea that it's said in visual terms so succinctly and so perfectly how the excuse me, how the what is it how Kronstein was essentially looking at the world, and his planning was like a chess game, and he knew, or he's anticipating the counter moves of the British side, and that's why he could read all the counter moves, and that's what he did in order to plan his plan. So, yes, I agree. And then let's see. Erwin has the same question. So, was Doctor No number 2 and not yet replaced, or was Largo already number 2 at this point in time? Yes, because Kleb is number 3. Yes, and then Zyrus, I don't think it was ever established. Um, Jim says my my girlfriend's favorite scene is Connor walking into the bedroom with nothing but a bath towel and his gun. Yes, he was about to unwind and take his bath in the evening. And there's a lot said about how he never turned off the water. Um, yeah, yeah. Maybe I don't know. Maybe Tatiana and Bond were uh, maybe becoming very passionate at a particular moment, and it cuts to, of course, the behind the scene, behind the mirror, and the whole thing with the filming of this particular moment, which is then going to be used as the cover story for a type of, what is it? The cover story of uh, of blackmailing a secret agent, and causing their kill because of some kind of this sexual jealousy, and so that is represented by this particular film. Uh, but maybe during the moment, maybe oh gosh, this is before they get into some very intense cuddling, as it were. Maybe Bond was saying, actually, let me stop here, uh, uh, and let me turn off the water and then come back. So that's probably what happened, right? But anyway. Um, So let me now, while I just go through this. Okay, here we go. Mike Pre-Code Fan. Hello, it's how are you? I'm very good. How are you? Yes. Let's see. Um, Skulder 22. Hello. And Chiggers. Hello. It's how's your day so far? Very good. Thank you very much for asking. It's now 8, a little bit after 8 in the morning. So going well. Keigo Onishi says Alan Rene should have directed a Bond film. That would have been very interesting. That would have been very interesting indeed. Yes. Um, all right. Um, yes. Where are you? I'm here. But I remember that. Oh, I didn't remember that. Yes. 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 Erwin says I really love the seemingly spontaneous facial expressions from Sean Connery in this film. Yes, I agree. And so let's see. I thought it was Gogol too. So referring to an earlier comment that I made. Okay, so I'm going to, okay, let me now, let's see here. Okay, Sorry about this. Just scrolling down. We use live target. CBC Legend is here. Hello. And Boonwell, Henoch's talking about Boonwell. Cooper Glover makes the point you don't hear Robert Shaw until he gets on the train. So thank you very much. This reminds me of the plotting of this. So let me riff off of Cooper Glover's comment, great comment, and say this. So yes, the whole thing about the way that this film introduces the Grant character is one of the elements of the plot and the revelation of story detail and information. I love this. It has this very direct yet indirect approach. And what do I mean by this? So, again, in my crude way of explaining, I apologize in advance, but so it has a direct way of approaching information in that I love how it sets up almost immediately the whole idea of Spectre and what Spectre is trying to do and who the people are on a very high level. And then we see or we get a sense of the various levels of operations, high level, maybe mid level, and then the ground level, as it were. And then we get the high level discussions with Blofeld and Kronstein and Klebb, and then maybe mid level operations on Spectre Island, and then the ground level in terms of Grant, and then meeting Tatiana Romanova and going to Istanbul, etc. So I love this structure, and it's set up almost immediately, and we as viewers are privy to all of this information up front, and it's a great way of organization of information because we know exactly what the plan is. A similar type of plotting, or let's say plot structure, was employed in a later film, Thunderball, where in essence we get essentially what the plan is, and we actually see them implementing at least part of the plan at the start of that film. Here it's the same thing, and it's done in a very well-paced and well-plotted way. And then when everything is enacted, then we see the plot, we understand what the plot is, and then the ball is rolling, and then we see how Bond is introduced into the scene and how he reacts to it. And we understand, therefore, that up to the Orient Express moment, he is actually going along with the Spectre plan. He is doing exactly what Kronstein and company wanted him to do from the very beginning. And so in that way, it becomes not just an interesting way of presentation of story material and information, but also a very suspenseful one, because we know that there is a way in which, by following this plan, Bond is essentially getting all that closer to his doom and the final dangerous confrontation with Grant. Incidentally, too, excuse me. Incidentally, too, and relying on Cooper Glover's great comment on this, the way that Grant is introduced is also a very interesting parallel type of direct yet indirect um, information or revelation of information, because we see him at the very beginning, we see what he can do, and yet he still remains a type of mystery. And that's what I mean by indirect. So on the one hand, it's a direct way of presenting information in terms of what the plot is, Kronstein's plot, the getting of the lector, how they're going to get the lector. But the details are, I would say, a little bit mysterious as well. Grant is seen here and there. He's seen tailing Bond. He's seen maybe interfering or intervening at choice moments, but then stepping back at other moments. So it's not actually quite clear, I would suggest, exactly what his role is. Specifically, we know that he is working for Spectre, but what is he doing, we're not sure. And then we realize, and I think it's a really great twist of the film actually, we realize that he was tailing Bond not to try to kill him, but he was tailing Bond just enough so that he would get the lector. Once Bond had the lector, then all bets were off, and then his orders were to essentially assassinate him. And so I love that twist, because it meant that you knew kind of what the plot was, but at the same time there was still stuff that was withheld from you, and you didn't quite know what the deal was until the final reveal, as it were. Or maybe the more astute of the audience could catch on early, perhaps, and that's certainly the case, I'm sure. But my point is that I love how it it shows us information, but then it withholds information just enough. So it's direct and yet indirect, which is why I was using that phraseology earlier. And I like that. That makes it, it makes it, how shall I put it? It's not just the fact that we get enough information. We get that information at the outset and makes it easy for us to understand what's going on, but just enough is withheld as well, just to give us that sense of mystery and intrigue. What is going to happen next? And so I like that combination very much. It's a very clever way of presenting story ideas. And then you introduce into these, or at the same time, the various characters that, as I was mentioning, are just so well expressed, and they're larger than life. Grant, Bond, Karen Bay, Tatiana Romanova, and I'll get to her in a moment, Kleb, Kronstein, and others. And then you add on to this the wonderful locations and the feel of the air, the romance and the intrigue. The Orient Express, which is one of those iconic things ever. And it's a great thing because one of my favorite films actually is also another film with Sean Connery and the Orient Express featured. But the this is right. This is all to say that this is yet another reason why this is, I think, a great plotted film in terms of its structure. It's easy to follow, yet it maintains an air of mystery. Well done. It's a brilliant play. And I also understand and appreciate how this structure wasn't always the case during pre-production, in fact during production itself. And I understand there was a lot of efforts to try to form the plot and story down to rewrites and even down to the editing and ordering of sequences. And so I understand that the production was a little bit hectic when it came to how exactly to arrange certain information, who to give certain dialogue lines to, who was the actual plot about, and things of that nature. But once this fit in, I think it was brilliant, and it locked in a way. And even too, this is great too because it's a type of hold on, it's a type of I think maybe a story type of metaphorical representation of what Spectre is about. Spectre is, it comes up and then it lurks back in the shadows. And so it's a great way, it's a great representation of a story that involves Spectre and the way that it lurks and it tries to sneak about and in order to achieve its objectives. And so we get its objectives, but then it steps back and it lets Bond do the rest. And so lets Bond do uh, their work, or it lets Bond do their work for them. And, a great way of representing story and plot, and also in an interesting way, a type of metaphorical representation, if you will, of how Spectre operates. And so, excuse me here. There we go. Okay, so it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant plotting, and the mystery element, the indirect element that I was referring to. I think that is encapsulated perfectly by the way that Robert Shaw's Grant is introduced. As Cooper Glover is saying, we see him almost immediately from the very beginning, the pre-titles. We see him early on, and yet we never hear him. We never hear anything until that voice. Even when he first speaks, in terms of speaking with Bond at the station. I think, what is it? It's Zagreb, and so he, of course, we understand because Bond thinks that this is Nash, and they have that scene on the platform, but and we see them speaking, but we can't hear them because of the train noises and the outside. So that is an eerier touch. It's like all this time we have been waiting in many ways to hear the voice of who this menacing killer is. And at the point where we understand this is the first time we hear him speak, we can't even hear him speak. It's only after they get on the train we get to hear a little bit of that voice that is used to pretend to be Nash. And all the details to it, it's laid on rather thick, and it's something that I think Connery's Bond catches on a little bit early. He begins to suspect early on, all the way down. I love the bit where Nash or Grant gives Bond the card, and Bond looks at the card and is like, "What is this?" Anyway, so he doesn't like that sort of thing. But I don't know if that was a giveaway, maybe because Nash would have had those cards too, right? So if the real life Nash was there and gave him the card, would Bond still have suspected who is this guy? I don't know. Maybe it would have been like Bond and Saunders in the film The Living Daylights. But in any event, It's a great way of revealing of character information, revealing just enough, but also withholding just enough. And we see that also in parallel with, say, how they treat the character of Grant. A great comment, a great point, Cooper Clever. Thank you very much for reminding me. That's another reason why I think this film is absolutely tops. Yes. Um, Yeah, damn fool. Yes, this is great. The suspense filled of Grant's reveal is at Hitchcock levels. Great, great way of putting it. And one of the finest in cinema. Period. I agree. Yes, and that extra touch of when he speaks for the first time, you don't even hear it. Ah, it's so great. Yes, yes. Uh, and that voice and the subtle change in the voice that he uses for Nash, and then the voice that he uses, put your hands in your pockets and keep them there, right? That subtle change. Oh, brilliant, brilliant stuff. Um, and the damn fools. Yes, Kago says yes. She's had her kicks. And at the moment where I mentioned yes, yes. And Scott Johansson says, Red Grant versus Bond in that most memorable train fight sequence. You won't be needing this, old man. Yes, yes. Um, and you could tell that Bond, every time he says, old man, every time he said old man, you could tell Bond was just, oh, I want you to, don't say that. But anyway, yes. You won't be needing this, old man. Yeah. Uh, that is a great, great moment. I agree. Okay. Oh my goodness. Sorry about this. I am scrolling down. My goodness. Here we go. Okay. Sorry about this. Again, I'm having trouble with the chat here. Sorry. The chat window just jumped again on me. So I have to go down. Okay. Thank you. All right. Oh, Collector85 says you can't stay, but just wanted to stop. And thank you if you're still here. Thank you so much. Mars and Worldwide is here. Hello. Thank you. Oh, Jim Sal says the only part that makes me chuckle is Kareem Bey's girlfriend purring his name over and over. Yes, in fact, it saved his life. Um, and he says, I was just relaxing on the settee when the bomb came. Well, actually, no, probably he wasn't doing that, right? He was, it was like, boom, right, and then the bomb exploded. Yes, so, um, and there's some very interesting double entendre, sort of risque dialogue here as well. Um, yes. Hanok says, I've had a particularly fascinating life. Would you like to hear about it? And then, oh, so yes, yes. Not so fond of his tailor, right? Mike Precoat fan, I need to see my eye doctor soon. I wonder if that type comes in bifocals. So, yeah, I don't even know what that type is. I think maybe it's the lens itself, the thickness of the lens that makes it memorable. I'm not sure, but I have to take a look. I know. Yes, Erwin says yes. Even though I've seen this countless times, I always feel incredibly sad when Karen Bay dies. Yes, I agree. Um, yes, and then Damn Fool says I know you've mentioned it in other places. Karen becomes the standard and most affecting of all the quote unquote sacrificial lambs. That function, the character function in a Bond story. Yes, Karen Bay related to Susan Bay. Now we're back to Star Trek. Sorry about this. Let's see. Yes, and then there's the picture of Churchill that's on the desk. That is very interesting. Yes, Irwin. Yeah. Um, that's where he says, right, this is an old friend of mine. Yes. Irwin says, Doc, OH, let's see, what is it? Um, Damn Fool says, okay, let's see. As a Bond fan, I continually flip between From Russia with Love and Doctor No at the top. As a film critic, From Russia with Love is the best. Kago says, who's Doctor No compared to Kronstein? Zarotha, thank you. So they said the only established numbers in the in the Spectre organization are 1, 2, 3, 5, and 11, and then we get a number of people in the Thunderball like board meeting. But yeah, yes. What's your vector, Victor? Roger, Roger. We have clearance, Clarence. What's your vector? Thank you very much. Thank you for understanding my, and thank you for going along with my joke. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm so sorry for others who think my jokes are terrible. Sorry. Let's see here. Yes, Mike pre-code fan says I have brass knuckles. Okay, just from the arthritis. Yes, Jim says he seems fit enough. Yes. Um, yes, great. Erwin says great little detail of Kleb smoking a cigarette while Bond and Tanya are having sex. Yes, so there's that moment where she's sitting there and she's. We get the understanding that she's probably going to enjoy watching this act of lovemaking between Bond and Tanya in bed. And I love the moment where she's smoking on the one side and she's like, she's right, she's just going this and says, oh, I'm going to enjoy this. And then she looks over at the guy doing the camera, and the camera's like, he's like, and then camera goes like, I love that moment when he takes a moment to go away and he's like, nah, yeah. so, so anyway, um, and of course it fades quite strategically to a completely different scene. Um, let's see. Oh, Kegel, thank you very much. One day we must devise a faster working Venom. Thank you, thank you. I think I misquoted the line earlier, so thank you very much for that lovely correction. And Damn Fool says, I really love the humor and spirit Daniele Bianchi shows in the film, and it even comes through after the dubbing. Yes, thank you very much for this. So, um, um, Barbara Jefford, right? And so Tatiana Romanova is what a great character she is. She is very much, she's central or she's crucial to the plot because she, of course, has physical access to the Lecter device, which means that she, within the embassy in Turkey, and so she, the cryptography section in Turkey, according to Kronstein, and so without her, the plan is essentially impossible to implement. So that's important. Also, as people have indicated, there is a type of attractiveness that Kleb feels towards Tatiana Romanov. At least that's what's implied in many of the details of their interactions. But also, more directly related to the implementation of Kronstein's plot, the trick is also to, as part of the ruse, which I think as a type of, what's the phrase, three-dimensional chess, the British side and M seem to know that this is all a trap, or they have a feeling that this is a trap, but they go along with it anyway because, as I say, they've been having their eye on a lector for some. They've had their eye on a lector for some time, just like the CIA, or according to them, the American CIA. And so, excuse me. um, Oh, incidentally, I spoke about Sean Connery and Orient Express. Does anyone know what this this is from? I only wish that. Excuse me. I only wish I could describe it with the incomparable panache. So, does anyone know what film? I guess you can kind of tell what that film. Anyway, sorry about that. Going back to Tatiana Romanova, the the key to that character too is the fact that the British know that this is a trap, yet they go with it anyway, and so this is all play acting. This is all theater. This is all theater, spycraft theater. So they know that the other side is putting up some kind of ruse or trap, and they know that it's a trap. They go along with it anyway. And so this idea of play acting or theater is really well established. There's a little moment too where Bond is picked up at the airport by one of Karen Bay's sons, and Bond is talking about, oh, is it customary to be followed? And yes, oh yes, I know, yes, we follow us, they follow them. It's sort of an understanding that we have. So it's the type of play acting that's out in the open, that everyone knows, oh, they're the spy. They know that we're on this side, they're on that side, and we're going to follow each other. And it's the kind of understanding that we have. Well, here it's the play acting that's part of the plot, and key to that is Tatiana Rovanova's role, because what she does in an interesting way is that she goes along with the plot according, or from her perspective, we understand is that she is working for the Russian government, for Colonel Klebb, whom she, as I indicated earlier, she still thinks is working for the Russian government, for Russian intelligence. But in fact, she's working for Spectre. But anyway, so Tatiana Romanova goes along with the plan, and the plan is to pretend to be in love, in sort of starstruck love, with this agent named James Bond, and like a movie star, so much so that she is willing to defect and to give up government secrets, a la the Lecter, in order to essentially meet and have some kind of maybe passionate interaction with James Bond, the man of her dreams, as it were. Of course, that's the act, that's the ruse, that's the plot. And Bond and M maybe go along with that as well. So that's part of the deal. But still, I think a really great setup, because what it does too is it makes her character it makes her character, I think, question, or not question, let me take a step back. Her character is one of the great representations of this blurring of the line between the fake and the artificial of the play acting spycraft theater, and also the way in which real feeling might possibly enter into the particular picture. You know, there's this really wonderful way that these Cold War thrillers deal with this, the idea of the cold-hearted approach to spycraft, including the idea of pretending to be in love or pretending to be someone's friend only to betray them at some kind of key opportune moment. That's part of that's one of the traits of a really tense Cold War thriller. Who can we trust? Who are our friends? Who are our enemies? And it makes it even a more fascinating experience if the characters have a type of self-awareness about this, if they know what the plots are, if they have a guess as to what the traps can be. And we have that here. What makes it even more interesting in plots like this is when the characters that are involved actually become very emotionally invested, and thus creating some very interesting choices. And I mean, the way that Tatiana Romanova, and the very fact that she makes her choice at the end in the hotel room in Venice, right as Bond and Rosa Klebb are essentially trying to fight each other. Who is she going to choose to help? She ends up choosing Bond over Klebb. And that is an indication of now she feels some kind of emotional investment towards whatever it is that she thinks Bond represents to her. And so perhaps we can see this as an actual type of, is this an actual defection of sorts? I'm not sure what's going to happen to Tatiana Romanova's character after the credits. But the fact that she decides to kill Klebb over Bond is an indication that perhaps she has made some kind of real emotional investment, so that that moment when Bond confronts Tatiana in the train car in the Orient Express after Curran Bay has been found to be dead, and she's hysterical almost. She says, you know, I love you, James, I love you, it's true. After he confronts her about, I know what the plan is. It's, oh, I love you, James, I love you. Is there some truth to that? If not, if so, I'm not sure. It's up to you and how you interpret that particular moment and the Tatiana Romanova character going forward. But I would suggest that, yes, there is a type of turn or switch which means or indicates a type of emotional involvement. And I dare say, too, that there are moments in Cold War spy thrillers where it's the moment of emotional involvement, the thing that you're not supposed to do in spycraft is get involved. When people get involved, that's when certain events start happening. And I think one of the best examples of this for me is the film or the novel Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. I love that story. It is one of the I read it so many times. It's so fascinating. It's so intricate. But one of the things about that story, and talking in general terms, is the way that choices are made on an emotional level, and those choices have great impact that lead the ball rolling to the inevitable conclusions of that particular story. And I think something similar is happening in this film, and as I say, expressed very well in the Tatiana Romanova character. And so, excuse me. So I think that's why she's very crucial and critical from a plot perspective, also from a thematic or story construction perspective. Also, it's a really lovely performance, as Damn Fool, Idealistic Crusader was referring to Danielle Bianchi, and just her mannerisms and her the way that she carries on. And there's a moment where she's saying there she's talking about things when we get to England, there are some things that need to be changed, and she's just laughing, and she's giggling, and that kind of there's a kind of giggle in her voice and a twinkle in her eye that I think has a real lovely there's a charm about that, which I think makes her performance, or that's an example of where her performance is really a very kind of almost it feels very genuine and very lovely. And so I think that's a great performance, a very charming and innocent way of the approaching the character. Excuse me. So well done. I agree perfectly with that. So um, sorry about this. Ryan Harding is here. Hello. I also wonder what Dr. No's number was. Keigo Onishi says Kronstein did nothing wrong. Yes. Sarah says good use of a matte painting. You're talking about the Cully matte painting, the ceiling. Yeah, I agree. Oh, cool kids clips is here. Hello, my friend. Ryan Harding says, strangely enough, one of my earliest memories of seeing the boat chase at the end is with the 007 theme accompanying it. Oh, interesting. I must have misremembered, since I never come across an edition of the film with the 007 theme accompanying it. Every time I watch it now, I think the 007 theme would match perfectly with it. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. Yes, I have never seen this particular sequence with the 007 music over it. There's of course that bit at the end, the Doctor No, it's the bit from music from the film Doctor No, the da 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 da, da right. So and that also appears at the end of the helicopter chase sequence as well, or the helicopter attack sequence from this film, I think. Um, let's see. So I think for me though, the one that was the little detail was the title of The End, the title card of The End. In the Blu-ray version that I have, the title appears a little bit earlier. It appears over the bit where after the film is thrown in the water and it says bye bye, it starts to go. I always I'm used to the moment where the end comes a little bit later after it cuts to the shaky water. And so that's one of the few differences I could see in terms of, say, recent Blu-ray edition that I've come across. Matt Kolkas here. Hello. Where are we in today's discussion? We're talking about From Russia with Love. We've got about maybe 30 minutes or so, I think. It's nice to see you, my friend. By the way, I hope you're doing well. Let's see. Yeah, and Erwin says, I love the exposition here, and especially the number one scene. So we get number one, we get the top of his Anthony Dawson hair, behind the chair, and there's a certain power, of course, of the voice as well. Um, the uh, uh, Why am I forgetting? Eric Pullman, I think, right? So there's that deep richness that cloaks a sense of the sinister, and the whole thing with the rings and the cat too. We get the white cat for the first time. I don't know if it's the same cat that we see elsewhere. This has, maybe it had a haircut. I was, oh, the hair around the neck is a little bit shorter, so maybe it's younger, or maybe it just went to what is it, the cat barber. I don't know what the name is for the person who cuts the fur of cats, but it does have a little bit, maybe a youthful look. I'm not sure, because I'm used to seeing the cat with a little bit longer hair. But so we've got that, and we've got the sense of the fact that we're probably going to see this person again, although we're not sure. There's the question mark in the titles, etc. And of course, we'll see something more extensive in later films like Thunderball and You Only Live Twice, and of course, as Guy Rother and Cooper Glover and A Damn Fool Idealist Crusader were referring to a little bit earlier in the chat, there is, of course, some legal dealings that were going on with regard to the rights and the intellectual property rights into these particular story elements. So, but any of it, yes. Um, well, Ryan says, yeah, Ryan, you're referring to the boat chase there. I thought that was a great way. So there's a lot of beats here. I think probably for a lot of people, the climax height in terms of action set pieces, probably the Orient Express fight. That doesn't come at the end of the film per se. It comes probably maybe, I don't know what the exact running time is, but it's what is it? I want to say 2/3 way, maybe a little bit more, because after the fight is over, there's still a little bit left to go, right? There's the realization by Spectre that Bond is still alive. They have to regroup and do a type of plan B with the helicopters, and then the boat chase, and then um, going to Venice, and Kleb infiltrating the hotel staff, etc. So we've got these sequences that are very, very exciting. But uh, I think for me, and for a lot of people, it's probably the Orient Express scene that is the climax of the film. And so that's another interesting way too, that this film might be said to be very unique in terms of its plotting, in that it has this sustained heightened sense of, say, climax, action climax, and then, while perhaps arguably the scenes that follow maybe don't reach the same levels of action, sense of climax set piece, they're, I think, very effective. So we have the boat chase, and then we have or the helicopter chase, and then the boat chase, etc. So I think that type of uh, air, fire, and water type of thing is very well matched and very well balanced. And the Bond does a good job too of being able to be chased by a helicopter and down the helicopter and still have his hat on. I think his hat is still on, which is great. Incidentally, the detail about when Bond goes into Istanbul for the first time, he goes into his hotel, the first hotel, not the bridal suite, but the first hotel, number what is it, 32, I think, 30 or 32, I forget. I think it's 32. But then he goes into the hotel room, and then he goes in and goes into that, and the hotel, the elevator doors close, and it does the wipe up. I love that. And he goes into the first hotel, and they've got the James Bond theme going on, and is there anything? Oh, thank you, sir. And he goes away, and then explores the room. And when he enters, you notice that he hesitates before he throws his hat onto the bed, right? Because That's, it's bad luck to put your hat on the bed there, but he does it. He hesitates, but then he has a little smile and he throws it on the bed, and it's almost like it's a continuation or an expression of, yeah, I know I'm getting myself into a trap, but I'm willing to do it anyway. So okay, so I'm willing to get into this bad luck situation anyway. So I love that little detail. By the way, this sequence is great. It's where we've got the not 007, excuse me, the James Bond theme, this recording theme that we understood and heard from Dr. No, the earlier film, and it's great. It's we're used to it being applied in these exciting moments, especially in the modern films. But here, right, this is exciting. It's wow, you know, dun, 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 what's behind this picture, and let's look in the glass here, and the reveal. It's like, oh, da da da. Here's the bug right here, and then to top it off, we've got the checking of the phone, and I love after he's checked the phone, he just throws the thing on the bed there, and he just puts his foot on the bed, and he says, this room won't do. Great use of the music. Incidentally, there's another great use of the theme, the John Barry score, which I didn't talk about too much today, but it's one of the highlights of this film and how it really pulls the film together in terms of the elements of suspense and romance. I love the bit where Bond arrives at the airport, and it's the da 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 whoa, 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 right, and then Bond is seen walking outside, emerging outside from the inside of the airport, and the camera tilts. Is it tilting, or it turns, and it goes to a shot of Red Grant sitting in the car, just observing Bond. And I love the moments like da 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 da. And this is where Red Grant is essentially chewing on the finger of his driving gloves, and he streaks like da 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 da, and that's great. And it goes into the dun dun, and then the whole bit about, oh yes, it's a type of an understanding we have. Uh, so that's a great use of music, and it's great too because it's interesting how music is not used. And so there's a little bit of a comment about how Ryan was talking about the boat chase, but I think that except for the very end, there isn't any music used in that scene. Just enough, or the music isn't used so that we can hear the great dialogue. Heave ho! Heave ho! You're firing too close. Spectre red, Spectre green, you're firing too close. Heave ho, get rid of it, get rid, Well, I guess at that point, we hear the music, of course, but there's that. And then there's also, of course, the famous Orient Express scene where we don't hear the music, but where we do hear some great musical uses of, say, not the James Bond theme, but the 007 theme. We hear it, I think, twice, used very effectively. The first is I mentioned earlier about the absconding or the taking of the Lector, and the traveling through the sewers and all that, and going to the Orient Express. That's one. But then earlier, of course, the camp sequence. And I haven't talked about the camp sequence in Krylenko and escaping through Call Me Buana and the mouth of the poster, and all that. But that's another very interesting element. Uh, the fight sequence, the right. Da, 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 and he says, I can understand what's going on without subtitles, thank you. And they have a little laugh, Turin Bay and Bond do, and then they see the fight, and it's a pretty deadly one. And Martin Beswick was probably about to get the bottle, right, smashed before like Krylenko and company come in, and the 007 theme roars in earnest, and you have this huge fight set piece spectacle. What I really found interesting was, did you notice that Bond, there'd be the moments where, from Bond's perspective, we have essentially, um, right, the goodies fighting the baddies, and then you'd have these little mini battles everywhere here and there, and shooting and things, and Red Grant is somewhere in the shadows, essentially interfering at just the precise moment, and Bond's like, what's going on, oh yes, I'll thank you about that later. But then what's interesting here is Bond, when he sometimes helps people, but then he doesn't help. He helps like the good, like there are people fighting, and you think you'd want to help the the you want to help by maybe subduing them, but no, he just like cuts down the tent, and he throws both of them in the water. And so you think, hey, Bond, I thought I was yours, so why did you throw me in the water? And so it's like he says, yeah, I'll just throw these you're fighting, maybe one of you is my ally, but okay, I'll just throw you in the water. Oh, I'll just throw the thing, I'll cut down the tent, it'll collapse on the both of you, you can figure it out between you, or something like that. So I always thought that it was interesting, little detail. But uh, maybe he was very busy, preoccupied with other things. And I love too how the two women, how they were fighting. Apparently, they were fighting over the same, maybe the chief's son, I think it was, and they were, I think, fighting to the death. And so there was this air of jealousy between them, but they were willing to be like the two of them look after Bond at the same, essentially the same time. So they were willing to put aside their differences and I guess their sort of sexual jealousy, for the sake of James Bond, which was an interesting. So maybe that might be suggestive of the fact that there might be peace between them, after Bond has left. So maybe they might be able to reach some kind of, amicable, solution in terms of their initial problem involving, I guess it's the chief's son. But anyway, so yes, sorry about this. So the use of the music here is sublime and it's exciting, and it has this, sense of the this is a film that is about cryptography and the cipher section and the lector. So it has that, so it has a sense of code as well. So I think it's really well fit and tailored to the theme of From Russia with Love. Of course, we'll see it used, or hear it used, I should say, in other films. But I love how it has that maybe extra link to this film, which is, I think, right, in sense, in not in essence, it is the film where the theme appears first in the James Bond film series. So that's great, and we get so many, or not so many, but we get a number of examples where it's going to be used later on. And I think, Damfool, and Ryan were reminding us that we'll see it again or hear it again in Moonraker, perhaps in a slightly slowed down version. But it's great. I don't know about you, but I would love to, say, please, bring back the 007 theme. Wouldn't it be cool if the 007 theme appeared? Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. If we get the film, No Time to Die, I know that's coming up soon. And so, if I don't, probably not going to happen, but if that 007 theme were ever to return in a modern film, wow. Wow, that would be like, I don't know. We'll talk about Spectre when we get there. But if, say, I'm watching Spectre, the film Spectre, I'm like, okay, oh, so that's okay. And then suddenly the 007 theme came out. I'll be, oh, yes. I'm sorry, but this film is awesome. That's how strongly I feel about wanting to hear the 007 theme again in that. If I heard it in Spectre, I think it would be like, wow, this could be my favorite, film, in recent memory. That sort of, reaction. But anyway, that's my, very terrible way of expressing how much I love that theme and how it's used throughout the series, at least under John Barry's, command and control of the music. It's really great. So, um, yeah. Oh my goodness. Okay. So Erwin says also there's no real clear villain. It's a group of people. Yes, very good. Um, let's see. Um, Ryan Harding says, From Russia with Love is my favorite Bond film, and I genuinely think Daniela Bianchi's performance is one of the most underrated in the franchise. I think it's a great performance. It's really great. There's a little twinkle in her eye at the end when she gives back the ring. Here you are, in case you ever need it again. And yes, is that another example of where Sean Connery says yes? But after all, we won't always be working on the company's time, will we? No, and James, behave yourselves. We're being filmed. Oh, not again. He's right, you know. And there's a little bit of maybe a little cut or mismatch. What is? I'll show you. Right. I think she's supposed to say, "What is it?" But there's a little splicing thing. This what it right. I'll show you. And then there's the thing where they kiss, and it's the end. And I like how it's not just the throwing. It's like, sorry, but it's like, yes, and that's the end of the end, or not quite the end. Yes. So, um, that's wonderful. And here we have, I think, the introduction of the tradition of announcing what the next film would be. So in the credits. So that's a little nice touch that makes the James Bond films. It's a really nice touch. I like that. Um, Ryan says she's terrific at being playful. One moment that always stands out to me is when she plays with her neck thing and bites it when she's smiling. Yes, yes. I always feel like that could be like maybe they said cut. Terrence Young said cut, and she's just laughing, maybe out of her character, or maybe it's just I don't know. It just feels so natural. That moment, you're absolutely, and she's biting down and she's laughing and just that is such a charming moment. I agree. I absolutely agree. Jim says, Tatiana, I think my mouth is too big. Yes. um, yeah. And Ryan says, her emotion here seems so genuine. Yes, I agree. Yes, yes. Thank you. You say it much better than I. Exactly. Exactly. Um, Yes, talking about the use of Spectre instead of Smirsh. And then Damn Fool says the films have always had a goal of not to be politically offensive to other countries so that they maintain worldwide box office appeal. Arwen says, my friends call me Tanya, mine call me James Bond. Yes, careful, guns upset me. Yes. Yes, I love too the detail when when Bond is giving over the picture of Tatiana Romanova that was taken, we understand, by Karen Bay when she first contacted him, and the picture is sent over to M, and then M gives the picture to Bond when they have their briefing, and then Bond leaves M's office, goes to Moneypenny, and then M interrupts with the radio with the intercom, and he says, ask 007 to give over the picture, and he writes, I think it's is it? Please correct me if I'm wrong, but is that Terrence Young writing? But anyway, there's a close up of the picture, with love, and he's about to write below that, but then he decides from Russia with love. So it's possible, maybe he could have said with love from Russia, and if that's the case, then it would have been interesting to think what would the story have been like if it were titled with love from Russia. That would have been very interesting. Maybe it wouldn't have had the same impact. There's something of a real lovely way the words roll from Russia with love. And also, it was fascinating too that this film doesn't take place in Russia, right? It takes, well, I guess it does in a way if you understand or consider that um, embassies are in fact the jurisdiction and domain of, say, the country that it's representing within the host, so within the host nation. So if you think that, we do get scenes in the embassy, so I suppose in that way we are in Russia for technically speaking, but you know what I mean. We don't go in terms of geographically within the borders, if you will, of the country, and so I always thought that was a very interesting touch. It's called From Russia with Love, but we spend our time in Istanbul and also Eastern Europe and then Italy, Venice, the beginning and the end. Also, it's interesting to think as we visit Venice at the beginning and the end of the film, we understand that later on in the James Bond film series, we will go to Venice again, and so perhaps Bond is thinking, maybe I'll come back with a gondola that drives on the ground, or maybe it would be interesting. I wonder what happens if those buildings along the canals there suddenly collapse. What I wonder what keeps those buildings afloat. Have you ever thought about that, Tatiana Romanova? And maybe Tanya's like, not really. I wonder. Maybe if I come back here again, maybe I can try to research exactly what keeps these buildings afloat and prevents them from sinking into the water. And anyway, so as James Bond says, yes. Cooper Clever says the Robert Shaw character's voice when he's playing Nash sounds like a cool, genteel English gentleman. Red wine with fish, yes. The Chianti, right? Um, okay, so and also I didn't even mention. Let's see. Okay, so we're almost at 9. Oh gosh, time flies, right? All right, it's my clock says 8:57. It's not a Russian clock, but I think we are. we are almost we have a few we can continue on with the From Russia with Love conversation for maybe 10-15 minutes, and then I do have to go in about I do have to go maybe around 9:30, so we're almost there. So yes, the poll should be underway, I hope. Thanks as always to Damn Fool, Idealistic Crusader, Zyrother. Zyrother, I remember you were the one who initially came up with the idea several, whatever it was, weeks or months back. So thank you very much for continuing on. I call it, in my heart, I call it the Zyrother poll. So thank you very much, my dear friend. Um, so, yes. But so far, what, 9 people have voted? That's fine. 9 is better than 0. Okay, so I don't know. Let's see. Um, on the music too, right? The I mentioned the and you get little, you'll get a little hit. We haven't spoken about Tomorrow Never Dies, the Pierce Brosnan and James Bond film, but there's a little bit of there's a lot of callbacks and homages in the music. In terms of David Arnold, you know that he really knows the world of John Barry's scores, and so there's a little cue at the beginning of that film that is an echo of the that staccato, suspenseful riff from Russia with Love. And I remember when I heard that for the first time when I saw Tomorrow Never Dies in the theater, I was just, oh yes, that is a From Russia with Love reference. Well done, well done. That's one of the reasons why I really enjoy Tomorrow Never Dies, and I can't wait to talk about that. But I will go with whatever is being voted on, whatever the consensus is at the end of the poll. So I will leave it up to you, my friends, as I Rother and Cooper Glover and Damn Fool and others. I'll leave it up to you when to close it. You can keep it open as long as you feel fit, whatever is appropriate for you. Let's see. Osiris says lowest voter turnout yet, pretty disappointing. Well, that's okay. Not a problem. Not a problem at all. Um, we'll keep it open. Is it? Are we keeping a strict time limit, or do you want to keep it open a little bit more? I'll leave it up to you. I don't mind. Let's see. Timothy. Oh, Timothy's here. Hello. Okay. Yeah, speaking, yes, we have to redo For Your Eyes Only. It'll probably be maybe a more casual. I mean, I guess the conversations are already like overly casual to begin with. I suppose I don't have that much structure to them, as you can tell. But but I think for the For Your Eyes Only one, I think it'll be even more maybe relaxed, and it will just be just talking about favorite moments from Russia with not sorry For Your Eyes Only, and so it'll probably be at the very end, and so we'll do all the films that we haven't spoken about first. But okay, so the winner is Octopussy. Great, the film Octopussy. I look forward. I'll speak to that in a moment. But let's return to From Russia with Love, and we have a few minutes left. So just to continue here. So I have, my goodness, the spoken about the music, the look. I haven't gone into as much detail as many other people here have. So as you can tell, my expertise is lacking in a lot of departments on this and other Bond films. But just returning once again to my overall feelings of this film as we close out the discussion, I can say quite emphatically that this is a a true gem, and it remains one of my favorites, and it continues to be that way. As I say that, my stomach is grumbling a little bit because I'm hungry, but I will try to drink in order to satisfy a little bit of that hunger before I go and have some bite to eat for breakfast. But the film is and remains one of my go-tos in terms of if I had to name my favorites. As I was indicating earlier, I love the Cold War feel. I love the establishment and reestablishment of character and character arcs. I love the way that it endeavors to create a world. I didn't even mention Q in the briefcase. My goodness, what a great invention and design. Turn the catches horizontally and then open like that. and I don't know, like if I were there, I would be, does it have to be perfectly horizontally, or what if I do it diagonally? What happens? Maybe at that point, I think Q was still amiable, and he liked Bond. It's only later, I think, from Goldfinger on that we realized that Q found Bond to be irritating. But excuse me. But the briefcase scene is iconic, and it's the introduction of Desmond Llewellyn. Of course, we get more of the interaction between Moneypenny and Bond. Sylvia Trench is back. I haven't seen you in 6 months. Um, and the way he chills the what is it, the champagne, and I love how he says. Come in Univex, James Bond here. And for the longest time, I was trying. Before I could watch this film with English subtitles, I had no idea what Univex. What is Univex? I have no idea what that is. But then I read it's Universal Exports. But at least that's what I think it is. And maybe if I'm wrong, please correct me. But I love how he says, I'm reviewing an old case, and I'll report back in an hour. And then he says, make that an hour and a half, and that always reminds me of the opening of, or the end of the pre-titles in the film The Living Daylights, the Timothy Dalton film. There's something about that. If you know The Living Daylights is, I'll report again. Please pardon me for my poor Timothy Dalton impersonation, but I'll report in an hour. And then the young woman on the boat says, "Won't you join me?" And he says, "Better make that two." Da da da. Aha. Right. And so, but here in From Russia with Love, it's not, I'll report in an hour. Better make that two. It's I'll report in an hour. Better make that an hour and a half. There's a little bit of an extra, an extra syllable or two there when you say an hour and a half versus two. So it's interesting if Timothy Dalton were in this scene in From Russia with Love. He said, "Oh, hello, Moneypenny. I'm reviewing an old case." And Sylvie says, "So I'm an old case." "Yes, you are an old case. I'll report in an hour." "No, you're an old case, son. Better make that an hour and a half. So how about that lunch?" Sorry. And then I should end with a little bit of a License to Kill Timothy Dalton laugh. And we'll talk about License to Kill when we get there. I can't wait to talk about that discussion. So it's always interesting to think what other Bond actors would have been like in this film. So it's interesting to imagine what Timothy Dalton's Bond would have been, maybe in that confrontation between him and Grant on the train. He says, "Keep your hands in your pockets. Keep, say, red wine with fish. That should have told me something, but I suppose I didn't catch it in time. I'm not a Superman after all," or something like that. So, or Roger Moore, maybe in that moment, "Oh, red wine with fish. Oh, I suppose that sort of told me something, but I really enjoy red wine, don't you?" "Yes." And then they fight on the Orient Express. Oh, the grass. Oh, yeah. And then the, oh, and maybe, he just came in for a quick bite or something. I don't know, something. I'm trying to think of the best Spy Who Loved Me parallel, but I'm failing at this moment. But that's part of the fun, of course, of the James Bond film discussion. And pardon me for and thank you for allowing me to indulge myself there. But going back to this film in earnest, that's again part of the fun. It's serious and it's a Cold War thriller, but it's also a Bond film, and so you can have fun with it and enjoy it in that context, and also see it as maybe something that is akin to, say, a Cold War spy thriller. And it is, and it is structured brilliantly in terms of the plot and story structure and the information reveal and withholding and the mystery element and the suspense element involved, the Cold War back and forth, East versus West, but we understand Spectre is involved in the shadows, and so that element is handled, I think, brilliantly and perfectly. And then we have, of course, the cast of characters that hold up this film, and not just hold it up, but then take it to the next stratosphere. and it's the performance. I didn't even go into that detail about how great I think Sean Connery's performance is. The look of him, the all the way down to the suits and the hair. This is for me, like iconic Sean Connery James Bond in terms of his appearance, and I love too the balance, how his suits, these are Anthony Sinclair suits, right? The suits are, they are the same sort of charcoal gray color. Like I love the moment where Bond and Grant meet, and they have essentially the exact same suit color, I think, all the way down to the white pocket square. And so I love that, how they're paralleling the two characters and they're making them almost equal footing in our eyes, and that's down all the way to the way that they are dressed and the decor and the suits and the coordination. And just going back to Sean Connery too, his look is really great. His hairstyle is great, and his manner and his physical appearance and just the way he carries himself in every scene is great. And yes, and that kind of playfulness and the chuckling and the giggling that he has, that almost sort of childlike banter back and forth that he has with Karen Bay allows for these chuckling moments, which I think are so charming, and as well as his demeanor and his relationship with Tatiana Romanova, and the frustration that he feels at certain moments can be very frightening and very confrontational. But that's part of the cold, hard edge of Sean Connery's Bond, and so I think this is a really great representation of the overall performance of Sean Connery throughout his entire run. Of course, it comes in different forms and iterations. For instance, this James Bond is very different from, say, the Diamonds Are Forever James Bond. But still, my point is that this is a great representation of what Sean Connery really brought to this performance. And then, of course, this is brought in by, as we mentioned before, a lot of the great sets. Terrence Young, I didn't talk enough about how great I think Terrence Young and his contributions are. And I think for me, it comes down to From Russia with Love. Uh, Everything that he brought is on full display here, and he encouraged people. His working relationship with others, especially the one he had with Peter Hunt, and the working relationships he had with the actors that he was working with. There was a sense of loyalty that we can see when we have archival interviews with Sean Connery. We can see how much he had respect for him. And then Terrence Young for Sean Connery. If you ask me what the three ingredients for success of Dr. No, where it was Sean Connery, Sean Connery, Sean Connery. That very classic moment in the archival interviews with Terrence Young. And so you can feel that that almost, maybe, I don't know if goodwill is the correct term, but my point is there's a feeling of we're doing something exciting here. And despite the fact that we understand that production details were quite hectic and quite chaotic, and it could have led to cinematic disaster, still, the fact that we had all these elements in place, you pull it off, and just not just pull it off, but create one of the most supremely satisfying and entertaining examples of James Bond film series ever, in my view. And you have it right here, From Russia with Love. And as I say, if I had to say what my favorite films were and I had to rank them, on a given day, this could be number one. It could be number one. There are a number of films that are fighting for that particular position in my head, but on a given day, if you asked me, and if I had the right feeling, then this could be what I would name as my number one favorite James Bond film in this particular series. But there are a number of others that are in contention as well. So, but finally, I should say that I think it ages very well. It's a film that feels part of its time and era, but that's part of the point, which is it has this feel of being a Cold War thriller, and that is reliant on East-West tensions that probably aren't. Well, there are perhaps certain similarities in contemporary politics today, but you know what I'm getting at. The Cold War is over by the time we watch it now in contemporary times, and so it is part of that particular history and era, and it does have this classical feel and almost an analog type of feel to it in terms of the the nature of the gadgets and the nature of communication and the way that spycraft is enacted and implemented, etc. It doesn't have that feel of the digital, so it's part of a different era, perhaps one might say a bygone era. But that's also part of its charm and appeal. And in that context or in that vein, it remains, I think, very suspenseful and very romantic and very engaging and very highly entertaining. And so, again, one of a contender for one of the best, my favorite James Bond films, From Russia with Love. Okay, so I think that is that is it as far as From Russia with Love is concerned. So we have I can stick around for another 15 minutes. Oh, let's think about I didn't even mention, right? Um, can I borrow a match? I use a lighter. Better still, until they go wrong. So maybe we'll end the live stream with that kind of phrasing. So I'll say, can I borrow a match? Oh, I use a lighter. Better still, and you can end it that way. So we'll end the live stream that way. But we still have a few minutes before we end, so I'll go back to the live chat here, and let's go from there. So, oh, Schlock Horror's here. Hello, Schlock Horror. Check out Schlock Horror's channel, by the way. If you love Columbo, the TV series Columbo, check out Schlock Horror. Schlock Horror is a Columbo expert. A lot of great things. So Schlock Horror, great channel. Let's see. All right. So sorry, and if I skipped over your name over the course of this, I really apologize. I'm so sorry. Um, let's see. So the next film is Octopussy, correct? Or as Kamal Khan says, Octopussy. Octopus, yes. Um, I love that film. I think it's so underrated. I was surprised. When I was growing up, Octopussy was also part of the James Bond world that I was living in. I was too young to have seen it when it was released, so I don't remember seeing it. So um, I began to become aware of James Bond, or I have memories of that starting from around View to a Kill days. So of course, View to a Kill came later. But Octopussy was part of that. Maybe a feeling of Bond films that came a little bit before, but were always there and were always broadcast on TV, and so I thought it was so exciting and thrilling, and it had this real, I think, creepy nature. I never understood. Okay, and then later, when I read more about it and about, say, reviews and online and some takes on the film, a lot of times I would encounter the view that Octopussy was, say, a a film that was more maybe of the ludicrous or of the sillier type of Roger Moore vehicle. And to be perfectly honest, I could kind of get where that was going. I could kind of get, but sometimes whenever that argument was made using as an example that because we see Roger Moore in clown makeup, I actually thought that that wasn't the case at all. I think that I can, while I can get behind some aspects of, oh, this is probably a more ludicrous Bond film, actually I always thought in my heart of hearts that Octopussy was a more serious, frightening Bond film because of things like the clown scenes and the twins, Nishka and Grishka, and that scene in I shouldn't talk about it too much, but that stuff was really creepy, and and the whole suspense theme involving the plot and the bomb and all this, and the John Barry theme with the bomb, the da 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 da. That's actually, think about it now that I think about that, da, 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 that's very much like a sinister version of the 007 theme, actually, the Octopussy music that's used for the bomb sequences there. But and just the look of the twins and the it had a creepy, and that alligators and like octopus, like flesh eating octopus, or I don't know, and these saws that would cut through. Oh, this had a lot of elements that were really creepy, and so I thought that that film had this hard edge to it, and I never saw it when I was growing up as a type of ludicrous Bond film. When I say ludicrous, it would be like kind of like a Moonraker type of vibe to it. But when I was reading up on it a little bit later, not all, but some of the takes that I was reading up on put it in that same Moonraker camp, and I never saw that. I always saw it as being a more, it was a very like a fantastic adventure type of film, but still, it was something that I thought had a real sinister edge to it, and so very very creepy, effective scenes. Um, and theme song too. Theme song I think is very. It has a type of laid back theme song, which I appreciate. And now that I think about the pacing of the songs, I really miss that type of like For Your Eyes Only and All Time High type of song. It takes a moment and just lets us relax and just it's a nice thing. It's like we're driving in on a nice summer day and it comes on. It's it's nice and we're looking out and we feel the breeze of the summer air. And that's the type of feeling I have whenever I hear, excuse me, All Time High. Uh, and there are some, I love some of the moments like the one of my favorite, it's like the and then the boom boom boom, you know, and right, you know, you can drive this thing, right, or it goes by hot air, well then you can, a lot of cue action here, and the like. So there, I mean, it has some maybe some kind of ropey moments to it. I completely get that, and so we'll talk about those when we discuss the film. But yeah, it's a great one. So I'm looking forward to this very much. So Octopussy, Octopussy, yes, and a great villain. Go out, get him out there, go, and he's like, yes, excellence, and all this, the dice and all this stuff, and then the whole thing with the, yeah. So, okay, sorry, I'm rambling here. I apologize, but it's gonna be a fun time to talk about Octopussy, and the West is decadent and divided. Yeah, that's great. And speaking of Walter Gotell, there's a lot of Walter Gotell goodness in this film as well. So looking forward to that immensely, immensely. And we're back to Roger Moore, and I think by my count, excluding the For Your Eyes Only redo, after we're done with Octopussy, that will be the end of the Roger Moore film discussions, right? We won't have any more Roger Moore film discussions. Oh, that brings a tear to the eye. Yes, that's very sad. So, but so we'll have to savor that discussion when we do it. And in fact, I should say too, today is the last film, right, in terms of Sean Connery films that we discussed. Because with this, we've already discussed Doctor No, this film, Goldfinger, Thunderball, For Your You Only Live Twice. And oh, actually, what am I saying? As I'm saying this, we still have yet to talk about Never Say Never Again. So that's something to look forward to very much. I don't know when that's going to happen, but hopefully it'll be very soon. Uh, and let's see. Speaking of which, what are the other films we have yet to discuss? The 60s Casino Royale, of course. Also, Tomorrow Never Dies and Die Another Day. And also, let's see, what else? Daniel Craig's run, Spectre. Okay. Okay. And then also License to Kill. I cannot wait for that one. I wonder when that's going to be arriving. Hopefully, very soon. I didn't see Octopussy in the theater, but I saw License to Kill in the theater, and there's a particular moment involving, let's say, the money laundering joke. Uh, when that appeared on on the screen, whenever, what was that, 89? So how old was I? I would have been, what, 10 years old, or around that age, watching that in the theater. Oh my goodness, that was a traumatizing moment. Oh, but I can't wait to talk about that and others. Yeah, so and the whole thing with the fighting with the fish in the bar, and this Kevlar is great. Yeah. Um, so anyway, sorry about this. I'm just going on and on here because it's Bond. So we have. I can stick around for another, say, 5-10 minutes, and so let's just talk about James Bond and anything you want to talk about. I'm all up for it. So thank you very much, my friends, for sticking around. It's been such a great honor and pleasure. So let's see. Um, Schlock Horror says, I love that Daisuke is like all Bond fans and that we can't ever talk about just one Bond film. Once the discussion begins, we have to talk about all of them. You know, incidentally, I guess not incidentally, because it's, well, I guess it is related because Schlock Horror, you're a Columbo expert, but the Columbo, um, what is it? Uh, I don't know if it's the first one that I ever saw, but the first one I remember seeing was, I forget the name of it, the one with William Shatner. And I remember the line, but I don't want to say it because that'll kind of give it away. But yeah, I love that one. Uh, anyway, thank you, Slalkor. You're very kind. Um, let's see. Um, yeah, License to Kill. License to Kill is great. Yeah, I agree. I think also we'll be able to go through this, and I'm thinking if the film No Time to Die, if the schedule, what is it, October, I think, September, October, I forget, this year, if that's still going to go on, then maybe we can do a No Time to Die discussion as well. So that'll be exciting. You know, we can try to watch it, and maybe a week or a couple weeks after it's released, we can try to come together and talk about that one. Yeah, so No Time to Die. Yeah. All right. And we haven't spoken about Die Another Day. I've spoken a little bit about Die Another Day, maybe here and there, but I think that has one that I. There are some things that I think what's going on here, but there are some other things about it too that I find very fascinating. So I'm looking forward to the Die Another Day discussion as well. Um, and Tomorrow Never Dies. I mentioned the Tomorrow Never Dies uh, moment that recalls For Russia with Love, but I was watching that again recently, and that's a great film. Tomorrow Never Dies. And like every time I watch that, I'm thinking like people say, "Oh, right, Katie Lang Surrender is wonderful," yeah, but I do love that Tomorrow Never Dies theme. I remember when I got the CD, and back in the day, you know, you had these. I don't know if they have them anymore. Probably don't, but they had the CD. What do they call it? Discman? The Sony Discman. I had one of those. It was a portable CD player, and I just put it in my coat pocket. And I thought it was I thought it was great, and but I know people maybe what is it, Sheryl Crow. I think maybe some people say the Sheryl Crow song, maybe the Katie Lang Surrender song is better. I love Surrender very much, and but I was listening to the Sheryl Crow song on like repeat back in the day in college on the Sony Discman. I just what was that line? Something like what's the line? I forget. Martinis, girls, and guns. It's murder on our love affair. Um, you're not the only spy out there. Right? And there's a kind of a lovely way that the song turned into that moment where that I forget, I don't know the phraseology, but it's so deadly, my dear, the power of what is it, having you near or wanting you near. That little moment, that note or that chord that's used. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the chord is, but it's a beautiful chord progression, and it goes into the until I die, until the right. But then, of course, Surrender, Katie Lang, and that plays over the closing credits of Tomorrow Never Dies, if I'm not mistaken. And so, if that's the, and I just the thrill of hearing that song, it was like electricity. I can't be like, and two, we have to remember that as much as I love Goldeneye, there's something magical about hearing this type of music in Tomorrow Never Dies. It felt like in some ways, maybe like a return to form. And then you cap it off with a song like Surrender. The chills, the voltage that went through my body when I heard that for the first time. I can't explain enough just how powerful that was. And so Uh, yeah, yeah, but I love Sheryl Crow's themes. That's a great question. What is my favorite theme song or song from the Bond film series? I saw Never Say Never Again in the theater too when I was a kid. Or at least I have memories of seeing it, and so I remember the shock that I felt in the beginning with the whole like 007, was it in red? Dun dun dun, right? And he's like, a man who's sitting up, doing all that stuff, um, and then that look. Talk about Sean Connery looks when the thing happens at the end, in that opening sequence, in the thing with the that look, and it replays. Yeah, so that's an interesting song. I think though the one that I listen to the most is hmm, probably I don't know, which songs do you like, my friends? What are your favorite Bond theme songs? That's probably for me A View to a Kill. Yeah, it has to be, yeah, Duran Duran's A View to a Kill. I love that song. I love that song. Number two is probably the one that comes after Living Daylights. So that's the 1-2 punch of 85 and 87. So, what are your favorite songs, by the way? We'll end on a song discussion in the last few minutes. Um, Oh yeah, yes, Seth. Thank you very much. Actually, there is something kind of poetic and fitting about ending these discussions on a the redo of For Your Eyes Only. So it's nice to return to Roger Moore. I love Roger Moore so much. What a great performance. Okay, so Cooper Clever says nobody does it better. Yes, um, Goldfinger for Seth. Irwin says the man with the golden gun and license to kill. For oh wow, yes, I remember the hearing the License to Kill theme, and it was playing on the radio. I think that was and got a license to kill. Da, da. What is that moment? And it shifts to another register towards the end. Got a license to kill, and da 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 bum bum da 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 bum bum da da bum bum bum. Ah, that's a great yes. Ah, yes, yes. Oh, I can't wait to talk about License to Kill. Yes, and the winking fish. Oh my goodness, that the implications of the winking fish. Right. Yes. Oh, and as I'm going straight for your heart. Yes, Ryan. Yes. Okay, so sorry. Here, Seth says Goldfinger. It's got to be near the top as far as themes. Keigo Onishi-san says on Her Majesty's Secret Service, the theme. So is it the theme or is it We Have All the Time? And so I'm assuming it's the theme, which is great, great. As David Arnold says in one of the documentaries, it's a killer tune. And the Living Daylights, thank you. You Know My Name. I love that song too. Skyfall, and then No Time to Die. Jim Sal says The World Is Not Enough. That's a great song too. Yes, the world is not enough, but it is such a what is it? It is such a different place. Why am I forgetting the lyrics? Let's just start. Why? And if we're strong enough, together we can take the world apart, my love. I feel scared. Uh, ROP Rupp says definitely A View to Kill for me too. Schlock Horror, probably You Know My Name, GoldenEye, Diamonds Are Forever. Oh, Diamonds Are Forever is a good one. Um, forever and ever. Yes. Um, Mike Eli, yes, I enjoyed Madonna's Die Another Day. Um, I like that song. I don't know, right? That one, I like how what is it? I like that song too, and I like how I may have mentioned earlier. What is he? There's a moment when it goes, Sigmund Freud, analyze this, and then lately when I hear that song, I always recall, that movie Analyze This with Billy Crystal and Robert De Niro, and I said, oh, this would be a great song to play over the titles of Analyze This, and I suppose if it was used again, she would say analyze that for the sequel. So, but yeah, uh, um, let's see. And I love that. Dun, 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 And I love it has the disco or dance theme version, or in the ice hotel sequence, right when Jinx and Miranda and Bond are meeting there, I think. But oh, Ryan Harding says you only live twice. That's a great choice. Yes. Am I remembering correctly that that song was used also in one of the episodes of Mad Men? Right. Uh, Seth Walsh says, "Oh, let's see." Damn Fool says, "I still want to hear the unused Clapton Vic license." Yes. Oh. And Kago-san says, "Let's see." He's talking about Die Another Day. Seth says, "For Your Eyes Only," is such a great theme. Yes. Only for you. Yeah. Kago says, "Diamonds Are Forever" got sampled by Kanye in a great song. Um, I love that. Dun dun dun. Diamonds are forever. Yes. Um, and the fact that they have Shirley Bassey and um, emphasizing the word forever and ever in a way that's almost like forever. She's emphasizing it forever. So the song and the presentation are all wrapped in one. Forever. Oh, that's great. And then the it goes into the discussion of the diamonds. Yes. Oh, and Reinhardt, thank you. Thank you. If There Was a Man. Yes. You know, and Where Has Everybody Gone? I don't know if I mentioned this enough in the Living Daylights discussion. I'd love to do a redo of Living Daylights, but anyway, someone said somewhere there was a question on another video of what are some of your favorite romantic films, Daisuke. I don't know if I mentioned it. I should have, but if I didn't, let me say that I always thought that The Living Daylights was one of the most romantic films, and that was due to the story and also due to the music. If There Was a Man, that is such a romantic song, and what a great way to end. I think that ends in terms of the closing credits, right? And then um, you didn't you didn't think I'd miss this performance, did you? And then oh, that's great. And of course, we hear echoes of it throughout the film. I think when they enter or they're traveling Vienna for the first time, but that theme, the Pretender's performance, is sublime and so beautiful and so romantic. I agree 1000%. That's a great one. And I remember I was looking for that soundtrack for the longest time when I was a kid. I couldn't find it, but then I found it on vinyl back in the day. Again, this was before the CD release, etc. When the CD came out, I was so over the moon. But before that, I had the vinyl. I remember I was maybe on it in London or something, and it was there, and I found, oh, it's the Living Daylights vinyl soundtrack, and I was listening to that over and over again, and the big thrill for me was hearing If There Was a Man and Where Has Everybody Gone. Oh my goodness, yes, that is and then Kegel says, I think On Her Majesty's Secret Service is the most romantic. Well done, Kegel. Thank you for reminding me. I agree with you. Yes, yes. um all right, so we're gonna have to end soon, unfortunately. This is the part I don't like, is ending. But um, we will talk about this. We will continue next time. But in the meantime, my friends, thank you very much for your time and just sharing with me some of your thoughts and perspectives and your enthusiasm. As I mentioned before, I'll say it again, I can't do this without you. So thank you so much, my dear friends, for this. And so we shall end the live stream, and I'll see you at the next one. But in the meantime, yes, thank you and have a great day. And so let's end with a little quote from Russia with Love, and we'll go from there. So, and then just give your little responses in the live chat, and we'll end. So, um, let's see. Can I borrow a match? And oh, I use a lighter. Better still, and then you complete the quote. Thank you. Erwin, thank you. Until they grow wrong. Until they go. Thank you, Jim. Until they go wrong. Yes. Sometimes I hate spell check on these things. Sometimes I say, like when I'm writing comments, I say, thank you, my dear friends. But sometimes it comes out, thank you, my dear fiends. And I hate, I don't want to write the word fiend. I want to write the word friends. And so I always have to correct. So I always hate that spell check feature sometimes. But anyway. Can't remember what I say. That's okay. That's okay, Cooper Clever. It was somewhat of an obscure reference. Sorry about that. Not a problem. All right, my friends. I am out of here. So see you at the next one, my friends. Thank you and cheers. Thank you.